no, there we go. I wanted to make sure it was recording to the cloud and not my computer.
That's okay.
Oh, gotcha.
I was a little worried it might run out of space. But yeah, thank you, Tim. So Ashley, as Ashley was saying, yeah, this is kind of informal. We have a couple of questions. So we could start off with how, and I'll put this in the chat too, I guess that might help. How did we adjust to remote classes and possibly working remotely?
Or did we adjust? Oh, sorry.
That's an even better one.
Yes.
Well, I guess I'll start. So I guess for me, it's just really natural. You know, when I first heard about, oh, we're going virtual, I'm like, oh, great. I'm actually staying home. It's actually, for me, I commute regularly to campus, when I first came to Drexel. And, it's just, sorry, I'm just mumbling here. So like, basically, ever since I'm here, I'm basically saving money. I don't need to go to the train and go to campus. I mean, even though the in-class, in-person classes are important because we want to get that in-person experience, but, I guess for me personally, I not only am I saving money, but I feel that I can take my own pace in like learning them, in the courses that I'm taking. So I think that's considered a benefit for me.
Thank you, Yen. I've had a similar experience because initially, yeah, it was a great way to save money and time on commuting. I think it was, but it was also kind of difficult for me too because I'd never worked remotely before, and I think at the beginning, especially when it was kind of back in like March when everything was abruptly changing, it was just a lot. I almost struggled more just because there were so many things happening at the same time. But as far as remote classes, I feel like remote classes has not been that much of a change for me because I've also mostly been in the online program, but working remotely was different. And I actually made sure to request, I requested a laptop from my job at the time. I was working in the Penn Libraries doing an internship. And I was worried that suddenly having to be on my own computer at home 24/7 would either drive me crazy or it would lead or lead to the premature death of my laptop. So, and for me, that was a great way to separate. That was a great way to kind of adjust to being in remote class and doing remote work. Is I had my work laptop for my work, and I had my personal computer for my classes. But yeah, I feel like it's constant adjustments going on with that.
Well, who wants to go?
You can go,
You want to
Albert.
speak, Albert? You can go.
Well, for me, this past spring was the first and only time I was taking any coursework during the pandemic. Yeah, because I finished up after the spring. I had just one course left. Yeah, I'd done my capstone project during the winter quarter. And yeah, the main disadvantage I saw right away was, well, in my case, I don't have a printer in my apartment. And because I was so used to printing in the computer lab at the CCI for free, or in the library using Dragon Dollars. And I find that, yeah, it'd be a lot easier to have the readings printed out on paper. But the way I was able to cope was, I actually have two laptops, one PC and one MacBook. And I began to realize that a great advantage at this time was, that I could use one for opening up the readings on one screen and the other for typing stuff, whether it's for discussion posts or for a term paper. And yeah, I also would take notes by hand in a notebook, but I recognize that I often couldn't read my own writing when trying to write quickly. And yeah, so I still figure that printing out the readings on paper would be so much easier, so that you can more easily, you don't have to deal with scrolling up and down the screen or flipping between tabs, and you also can make notes by hand of ideas for discussion posts or for papers. And I was also doing an internship at UPenn's chemistry library. And yes, I was supposed to basically work remotely, and well, at least my schedule was more flexible than previously, because yeah, considering that I don't actually have to go to any particular building. Yeah, previously it's like I might be in a hurry when I wake up to get breakfast or take a shower and get dressed, and then having to walk, and maybe almost sometimes maybe like walking big steps and walking fast, almost like running. But I recognize that it's like I could easily sign on right away as soon as I got up. And then, yeah, my supervisor was very flexible as long as I got in 4 hours at some point, any time in the day, or in some cases, maybe if I wanted to really take a whole day off, as long as I made up for a grand total of 20 hours in a week. And yeah, so then it was overall flexible for me too. But at least I could even have worked like maybe at this hour, but I really didn't want to work this late in general. And yeah, and so and I forgot to mention earlier that I also did a minor in healthcare informatics. And yeah, there was at one point possibly debating on whether to make it a second double major. And at this point, I easily feel glad that I didn't and just simply had it as a minor, because I'm definitely relieved, obviously, to be done now.
You can come back for that certificate anytime, Albert. We'll save a place for you, okay? You take that as a post.
Oh, yeah?
I think you overachieved enough already, dude. You can rest on your laurels for a bit.
Yeah, take a little break.
I like the 2 laptop idea. I have 2 screens, but 2 laptops, yeah, because sometimes I lose things trying to do the 2 screens. Oop, you next.
I like the dual laptops thing as well. I was always kind of skeptical of other people who really preferred the dual screens. And then I realized after having this, I was completely converted. I was like, wow, this is so much better. But yeah, I think like listening to what everybody said so far, something that I have kind of realized lately is, so back at work now, I know, Tim, you're still working from home, but like Drexel Library staff are beginning to return starting this past Monday. And it's been weird, and it's still mostly like a hybrid mode. But reflecting on that and what everybody said, I think something that was really like a profound realization for me was what worked at the beginning of the pandemic didn't necessarily work for the rest of the pandemic for both school and work. I remember like starting spring courses, and it was a week later than it was supposed to be because, you know, we weren't really sure at first when this was all going to end. It was the whole, oh, maybe it'll be done in 2 weeks, maybe it won't be. And it's funny to look at that now, or to think about that now. But I remember starting spring courses. It was one of the hardest times. That was like the most rough beginning of a course for me ever. And at first I couldn't really figure out why. Because I've been doing the online program since I began about a year ago, because it just works better with having kind of crazy work hours, having to staff the front desk at the library pretty late at night sometimes. And I thought, this really isn't any different than what I've been doing before. Why is this so difficult? And I think that it really just comes down to trying to shove every single aspect of your life into the same room in your house, or even just your apartment or your house in general where you live, trying to go to school, also working at that same desk. Also, you know, this is the same desk that I also play D&D with friends virtually. It's like, it's weird transitioning between all of those things in a single day. So yeah, I think trying to find a happy media, or trying to find just a balance between all of that stuff. It was hard. And, you know, at first I thought, let me make like an hourly schedule for myself every single day. And that worked for about 2 days until we had a staff meeting, and then I had to rearrange all this stuff. And I thought, you know, I should have just made this a dry erase board and had little like magnetic things so I could move around hour by hour. But it was just unrealistic to think that each day was going to be able to be planned out like that. Because if we've learned anything during this pandemic, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is set in stone. Everything can change at the drop of a hat. So I will say, like, I think getting used to doing school all from home and all virtually, though, overall was easier than with work. You know, like doing, being a manager on duty at the front desk of 2 of the libraries in Drexel Library system, I always thought like, oh, you know, this is the kind of job that you could never do from home, you know, fixing printer issues and helping people get connected with a librarian and giving them directions to other building on campus. It's all face-to-face conversations. You know, I thought, oh, this is never going to work. But we adapted as best we could. And, you know, we already had live chat on the library's website. That got used, you know, much more than it normally would have, I think, trying to answer those same questions for students. Like, that became our front desk. And it kind of evolved over time. It was a harder thing to transition and get used to, but it did work. But I will say, as nervous as I was about going back to work this past week, it is nice to see some of my coworkers again, like you, Christine, who was there sometimes. And yeah, it reminds me of how things were before. There's like this teeny little ounce of normalcy that has returned, and it's comforting. It's scary because it's different now, but it's comforting. I'll stop now.
It's almost wild, and maybe that should have been a question we asked tonight. We could ask if we took out about it, but transitioning back to working after being remote is also totally, well, uncharted territory, I guess. I've definitely been feeling that this week, that it seemed like there was a lot happening when we transitioned to remote working and to remote classes, but it almost feels like there's more now transitioning back into in-person working, because it's like figuring out all those things again that you didn't have to do for 6 months. But thank you guys, thank you. Should we talked, I think Ashley, you mentioned a little bit about how balancing grad school and working, because we know that a lot of LAS students work part-time, full-time in different kinds of jobs. So that's kind of a general question. If we want to, I'll throw in the chat there. How do we balance grad school and work, either in person or remotely? And we don't have to talk about this as much because we kind of talked about it a little bit before, but
have a notebook. Just keep track of everything. I mean, I remember like every time in each quarter at Drexel, I always put, look at the syllabus, look at the deadlines of, the assignments and projects. And then just like, at the same time, just write down the schedule of your work. And then you have to like think about, okay, what should I do like in between? So I think that having a notebook is very useful for me personally. I'm not the kind of person who puts like the schedule on my computer, even though I use it a lot, but I think it's more useful to actually handwrite it, in my personal opinion.
I agree, and that just what you said reminds me of this meme that I saw, I think probably back around April, and somebody had taken a picture of a 2020 planner, and they were like, this is probably the most pointless thing that I bought this year because of the pandemic. And I thought about that, and I was like, you know what? I understand what you mean, but I have to disagree because this is saving my life right now, trying to find the balance between grad school work and everything else. It's not filled, you know, as much with like fun events of going out and doing things, but it helps me remember like, oh, I have this many virtual meetings today, and yeah, or this many, or I have like this assignment due, or this virtual meeting with a group of grad students. Thinking back now, that definitely helped me the most when we had to do virtual group projects for class, which it's already a frustrating kind of thing to have to plan that around everybody's schedules, especially if the people in your class also work full time, or, you know, this wasn't in my class, but in another class, there was a group that got put together and they each were in different time zones in different parts of the world. That's extremely stressful. And having a planner where you can write down the exact details and time that you are all able to meet, like, I found that to be really helpful.
Yeah, let me just say one quick thing. I'm really missing my weekly academic planner. Where's my old one? It runs out in September. And so like, I'm like, what? You know, but it's the week at a time thing. And I'm just used to things that I have to prepare for, like meetings. Okay, yeah, I'll get them done. I get little reminders, but things I have to prepare like a day in advance, 2 days in advance, or even a week in advance, I lose track of that stuff if it's just on Outlook. And we were talking about, oh, you can send yourself an email. I'm like, well, what, another email? No, I want it. So I had to steal one from my teenager. Now I've written out all the presentations I'm doing so I can see it in one shot. What were you gonna say, Albert?
Well, in general, this sort of issue is something that can vary from one individual person to another. Like my very first quarter, I took a full-time load, and I found myself constantly procrastinating nonstop all the time. I seem to always have pressing stuff to do nonstop all along. It seemed endless. And then after that, I ended up taking 2 courses per quarter. And then when starting my internship at UPenn, I ended up doing 1 course. And then last fall, I tried to do 2 courses at the same time as my internship as well, also recognizing that if I did one at a time, that I wouldn't finish up till the summer, and then also not being sure of what else could still be offered later on. And I also am glad that I at least got 2 courses in at the same time as my internship. And with, especially with the fast-paced nature of the quarter system, how from day one it's already easy to get slammed, and to be constantly busy nonstop with endless papers and projects, and then it's like, and then all of a sudden after you're done with your last final, it's easy to feel burnt out, but then likely not have enough time to ever fully recover before having to start the next quarter again. And obviously it would be nice to have a balanced life overall between different things in life, like school and work, as well as like personal time or like family time or a social life too. And and for me, I am often very detail oriented, and like I often read over any paper or discussion post before I post it too, multiple times, and make all these little minor corrections to my wording and my grammar and my word flow and spelling, etc. And now I'd often use a printed planner, mostly for writing down stuff that I did on each day throughout my internship, in addition to any plans in advance. And I've often used my cell phone, my smartphone, the calendar feature more so for recording events, and I would often set reminders, even change them to continue to remind me leading up to the event, like first starting out as 1 week prior, then 2 days, then 1 day, then 2 hours, then 1 hour, 30 minutes, etc. And and to relate to Ashley, talking earlier about issues of trying to coordinate with other people for a group project. Yes, I also had issues like that last fall too. And I had tons of things happen to me in a very short period of time, especially around the time of an event that we are in the works of planning that we'll announce a little bit later, most likely, too. And I could kind of go off into a much longer story on that.
Does anybody else want to chime in? I'm curious how the socialization thing has worked. Like, I've just kind of lost track of that part. Like, is it all online? That was the hardest thing for transition for me, because I'm used to, chit chat with my colleagues to figure things out. We solve problems together. And now it's like, oh, you can go into Teams, or you can email somebody, or you can go to the trouble of requesting a Zoom session. God forbid you call someone on the phone. Thank goodness you guys are back in the office. I can call someone just for stupid stuff like, hey, can you print at the library? I know I saw that on FAQ, but really, nobody can print for real? And you guys like, yeah, nobody can print. And just like reality checks, oh, I talked to another person, I got a reality check. You can't print. And then I have, because people are yelling at me on chat, like, why can't we print? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to talk to someone else and I'll get back to you. Blame the guy at the desk. That's what I do.
If it makes you feel any better, we've also gotten yelled at in person about people not being able to print. Well, I shouldn't say yelled at. Somebody stopped me in the hall on my way up on my first day asking about printing. And I was like, you are out of luck, my dude. Go to FedEx. Sorry.
Yeah, not yelling, just,
Yeah.
what do they call it? SMH, slapping my head.
I agree. It's there's a lot of, it's great not to just be able to talk and have like fun conversations with coworkers again, but like a big part of my job is doing course reserves for the university and being a part of a team with 2 other people. And it's like so nice to have the potential to be able to work issues out in person, because, and then this was an issue before COVID, being placed at all different campus libraries at different times of the day and also different days of the week because of the hours we had to cover, means that sometimes communication is really hard. So it's nice to just think to myself, oh, well, we might be able to solve issues in person again. Like, that is comforting to me. But yeah, I feel like we have all become like almost expert in Microsoft Teams now.
And another system that you can consider using, especially for a group project, is called Slack, in which people can post different things or maybe post files. And so you don't have to deal with all these emails, especially when people keep hitting reply, that you see the previous messages, and things can get kind of more confusing as people continue to reply, and you see the old messages, like wondering whether or not you read that before, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's like a stressor. Like, if I see a really full inbox, like for me, an email is like it's like a ticket or a work request if it's from a client. And if I see like a thread with like 8 things on it, I'm like, oh no, it's even more work. So yeah, Teams, I'm a begrudging Teams user, but I'm getting, for those things that aren't really that important, like, oh, there's this cool conference, and what do you think about it? That's not work critical. I mean, today, deal with it now. But you just put that conversation over there, you get to it when you want. But is everybody using that? Everybody, Michael and Annie and Yen, are you using Teams for anything? Because I think all students have it, right? Everybody has it now with Office 365.
I haven't, but I haven't used it yet. I do, I have a group project started in one of my courses. So once that is, once we get that rolling, maybe my group will figure out the best thing to do, but it's an option.
Same, because
Yeah, not really anything yet.
because I actually think it's a conspiracy on the part of Microsoft to take over Facebook and like steal all that energy that you spend spacing out on little threads on Facebook and put it into work things, which is probably not a bad idea. But
I actually deleted my Facebook app on my phone. So
oh yeah, don't have it on your phone.
well, I
That's
have
awesome.
that documentary on Netflix, and I was like, The Social Dilemma or something, and I was like, immediately I deleted my app.
Yeah, don't have it on your phone. I don't do it on my phone, but I probably check it a dozen times a day, you know, between getting up and go. But the fact that I got to log in, that keeps it a little bit more off on the side. But, yeah. And there's the DULASA Facebook group. I hope you will all join and post stimulating library and information science related whatever. What do you say, Christy?
Oh, I was just going to say that I did use Teams in a group project last quarter, and I think it really helped us stay organized. One of the group members just created a Teams that was for our class, and then because we worked together on like homeworks throughout the quarter too, so it was kind of like the entire quarter. And I did find it like very useful for sharing files and then like having our meetings through that so that everything was in the same place. So
It's really good. I wish I had used spring project. Blackboard made it too complicated, just Blackboard.
Yeah, even though
never used Blackboard.
quite often in courses in which you have group projects, there might be some like parts of the website for you and your group to communicate with each other on the project. But yeah, most of the time, I don't think any of my groups ever really used that.
What's funny is back, when was this? I don't know, 15 years ago, there was SharePoint. It was this new thing, and all librarians were like, "Oh, we should learn SharePoint." And it was like, boom! It was so boring and so awkward. It reminded me of Lotus Notes that was big when I got out of library school, and which was just like threaded discussion, but put files in there too. But finally, like Teams is built on top of SharePoint, and it's just like an interface that works. You put files, you have discussions, you create new things. But it took them so long to figure out how to use that stupid base of SharePoint. I'm glad something productive came out of it. Yeah. Anyway. Wow. Yeah. What other questions are on that list there? Unless we've talked this.
Yeah, we can either we can open it up if anyone has a question, or we have questions about time management.
One last thing about Teams is I noticed you can do this Zoom thing in Teams, you know, presentations, and so that's pretty cool. And then the other platform it sounds like people are using is that gamers platform, Discord. Who uses Discord? Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, but some of the other student groups that I work with use that, and then I think the most fun thing we did was watch a movie together. That was like, I don't know how we did that, but someone else took care of it. What was the question, Christine? No, I just had that after.
So well, we have a couple questions left, but obviously want to hear any questions that you guys may have. We have time management do's and don'ts, what has worked and not worked, and also how do you de-stress, or what do you do to maybe get time away from grad school and work. And we talked a little bit about, I know we kind of talked a little bit about like how doing everything online, like school, work, and also socializing, it is kind of a lot to be doing through the computer. And that's also something we can talk more about. But I have one that kind of mixes. I kind of have something that mixes both of those. Is that something I've actually found that helps me both sort of with time management and time sort of with socializing, is that I seem to be a lot more motivated when I'm on, like when I am talking to, like when I have a friend online with me. So I will, and I guess because it also forces me to make a plan with that friend, like with a friend, to have like we'll either do like a Zoom call or just kind of a video call, and we're both working on things, but we can have like, we can also chat back and forth if we're like, and it's really helped me because I know that I'll find something to distract myself. And it won't be grad school, and it won't be work, it won't be productive. But having a friend online with me also helps me stay in touch with my friends too. I have a couple other friends who are in different grad programs. I just
So
have
it's like,
found that to be really helpful.
so it's like virtual co-working.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah.
I've been thinking about that lately, that would help me, because yeah, boy, it's easy to get distracted.
If you don't mind me jumping in here, I 100% agree with you. And I actually, like, I've never thought about phrasing it like that, but for the course I took in the summer with Dr. Jane Greenberg, who was awesome. If you've never had her for a course yet, she's really cool. She knows the guy who invented the World Wide Web and does like MIT research and all this stuff. She's awesome. She's like the data queen, basically. But she she told the class right off the bat, she was like, if you guys complete assignments as a group or with a partner or whatever, like that's fine. And so another coworker of ours that is in the program, Lydia, immediately was like, let's do stuff together. And I kind of was like, oh, I guess, but it ended up really being helpful for me because I'm the same way. I will find things to distract myself and procrastinate all the time. And it really helped having somebody else to hold you accountable, basically, for getting your work done and not at the last minute. And if I may, that could be like an event that we do at some point in the future, like just an informal thing. If you guys want to have like we can call it a study group, and where you can get on a Zoom call and just, if there's a week where we feel like collectively we need to do some catch up with our assignments, that'd be something I'd be interested in doing, and just kind of, maybe play some study music in the background. And if anybody wants to vent about how much they hate group assignments and group projects, I'm there.
And well, there's some courses in which faculty members would say that that you're not allowed to post all at once on the last day, because there wouldn't be enough time for other classmates to respond to you. And so I recognize about, even if I have something due sooner in another class, about having to do something for a different class that, even though it's not due sooner, but at the same time to still avoid procrastinating on stuff from other courses. And I recognize that's definitely a lot easier said than done, for sure, especially on a quarter system. And but then there were also other courses in which it appeared to me like the professor didn't care if we posted all at once on the last day. But yeah, you still really should try to post earlier, or sometimes I'd try to do it maybe on a Saturday before Sunday, at least, the deadline of which all posts would be due, so that I wouldn't quite be the last one to post necessarily. And yes, I recognize that if you post earlier, then there's more chances for other students to see your post and possibly respond to it.
Yeah, discussion boards, they don't seem to be going away anytime soon, and they do tend to be difficult to get that timing right.
Well, here, how about you say this and I'll say that, and then you respond. I could see that being a counterpoint to the discussion board. You just meet online and compose your stuff together.
I actually took a class with I took a class in the spring quarter with Dr. Youngran Park, and she had us do like Zoom discussions. Like she paired us up with somebody and told us that we could do our discussion, like instead of writing a discussion board for those weeks, we could actually have a conversation through Zoom.
Oh, nice.
And she gave
That's
us like
cool.
questions. She still gave us questions as prompts, but like I actually found that to be much more useful as well. And I wish more, I don't know, none of my professors are doing that this quarter or last quarter, but I think that is a wonderful way to
Well, the
have
question,
discussion, actual discussion.
the question that comes to my mind is like, how do they know what happened in your Zoom thing? But there is that transcription feature you can turn on Zoom. You get a whole transcript of everything you're saying there. That's if you, I think you have to record to the cloud in order to get that, but everything you say pops up as a transcribed sentence and you can save that.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you were required to record your discussion and then send the link to your recording to your instructor.
No, she didn't require us to do that. We just had to email her that we had done it, and I think she asked maybe for a summary of what we'd talked about. But I think, or at least like the person I was paired up with, I guess like you keep each other accountable. Like it's not like she paired us up. It wasn't you get paired up with a friend and then you both decide that, okay, we don't actually have to have a discussion, but it's a way. I think it was also a way, like I was paired up with somebody I hadn't ever met in person, but I'd recognized her name because I'd seen her in a bunch of my other online classes, but never had a face to the name. And I found it really helpful to actually get to meet somebody virtually and have discussions that way. But
maybe that's,
I mean, they could require that, but
maybe that's maybe that's a suggestion. Like, well, if you have any ideas at the beginning of the term about things we want to do, hey, can we make our chat discussion threads real time in Zoom? Anyway, yeah.
I do have a professor that is, in terms of discussion posts, like if you actually attend the group Zoom lecture, which is open to online students and students who are going to take the in-court or in-person class, if you attend the Zoom lecture, then you don't have to do the discussion post because it's basically the same thing. So, and I also have Professor Park, and she's doing the like splinter cell discussion meetings as well.
Nice.
Yeah, the faculty are they're getting their game on, you know, the whole remote learning. You know, some people need the face-to-face. They can't do online because of like immigration status or whatnot. So they're, you know, they have all the classrooms 1/3 capacity and stuff, and yeah, so it's juggling, but they're trying to get their game up. And it's funny how much, you know, of the economy could go online, you know, and everybody's had this big learning. I used to be like the geek who would be like, oh, and can we have an online, you know, simulcast for the online student? I used to be that guy for the last 10 years, you know, with Adobe Connect and everything. But now it's the norm. Everybody knows about it. And I think we're never going to go back.
It's a big change, definitely.
Yeah.
Going off of what we were talking about with discussion boards, because I've had Dr. Park before. She taught info. She taught Info 505 when I started in spring of, oh my God, I don't know if that was 2018 or 2019 now. Forget, even though it hasn't been that long, but she did like regular discussion boards then. So it's cool that she's like adapted to all of this. But another thing that I thought was awesome was, if you ever have Dr. Tim Goroshanas for a course, I took Info 508 with him, and great teacher, doesn't give grades until the end of the course, which I could explain that better, but it's actually a really cool system. I was really anxious about that at first, but he did discussion boards. It was kind of just free reign. You posted your own thing. Everybody could post what they wanted about either the course material, the subject, if they were struggling with something in class, or just a cool library thing that you saw that week. And I found it so much more exciting to participate in that when you're given the free rein than if it's like a specific question you have to answer, even if it is proving that you read the reading or, you know, or watched all of the materials. I thought that that was much better. And I will say that, like, and you could comment freely on anybody else's, people did quote the readings in it, I think, better than they would have in another class, because you were just kind of allowed, it was totally like DIY, free reign. I thought that that was really cool. And I wish that more people would do it that way, but you also have to prove that we've actually done the reading, so. Are we scheduled to go till 8 tonight, I think?
We are, yes. So we have about 10 minutes left. Yeah, we can stay, or I at least can stay on longer. I don't know if anyone else, like, if anyone has to dip right out, they can.
Did someone say that there was program ideas in the wind or being discussed, and someone wanted to say something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a good topic, as opposed to if we're just, I mean, we could talk about, maybe there's other questions people have on their minds, but that's one that's in my head, is what else is DULASA doing?
Yeah, we can cover that really quickly. We can cover that, I guess, before we go, if anyone has any questions. So we do have a couple of events that we're working on getting together, finalized and organized. Albert, do you want to talk about the one where?
Okay. Yeah, so we're working on a STEM librarian panel discussion event, and this will be the third year too. And also at the same time in partnership with UPenn's Biomedical Library. And this year we decided to focus it more on like early career stages, and we plan to feature 2 graduates from the MLIS program at Drexel from last year, or now 2 academic years ago, and one of which had been an officer for DULASA previously too, and she had helped plan the very first one 2 years ago as well. And which they would have a chance to speak, and then we would also, in the audience, people would have a chance to ask questions. And yes, that was the sort of event that I mentioned briefly earlier about, which I had tons of things all of a sudden fall on me at last minute, all kinds of things I could go into a long story on. And that's something that we had done previously, but obviously we won't be able to do if we have to hold it virtually, was, we actually would give a tour of their 3D printing lab in the Biomedical Library. And this is my first time of seeing this sort of feature in a library for the first time ever. I'm sure perhaps most of you probably never thought of something like that in a library. You could have most likely thought of only stacks full of books previously.
But yeah, would they print on demand, or was it just for instructional stuff? Instructional, like, look at this part of the body that we've printed in plastic and you can look at it in your class.
Well, mostly for stuff related to school and instruction, but I thought I could have heard that about one place where I guess it sounded to me like students still could print stuff like that wasn't related to school. And UPenn also has another place called Education Commons with another 3D printing lab area too. And that place mostly has spaces for collaboration on projects and doesn't have any stacks.
All right, well, don't give it all away. We're gonna have this talk, and then stuff's gonna be cool. But don't tell all the secrets, Albert, if we're gonna have secret 3D printing stuff to talk about. What else is on? I have something to say that's not DULASA, but it might still be interesting. But we can come back to DULASA in a minute, but I just remembered it before I forget. Has anyone been to those talks that Dr. Augusto has done on career stuff? CCI hiring outlook for information professionals?
Not yet.
Not yet. I remember one because I was a speaker, but she's got 2 more coming, and one is on October 19th. I don't think it's been announced yet. I don't know if it has been. And it's librarians who've gone over to the other side. Librarians who work for vendors and library software companies. So that'll be cool. And then the next one tentatively, I think, is November 30th. A music librarian and a digital library manager, whatever that means. Digital library can be a whole lot of different things, but that's put on your calendar. But DULASA has done a lot of this sort of thing too. So I'm glad to see CCI picking it up. But with the medical librarians, that's career oriented, a day in the life of a medical librarian, whatever. And if other people have other thoughts, or yeah, go ahead. You're gonna say something, Christine? Like just
Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess Yen, Annie, Michael, if you guys have any ideas, things that you'd like to see, we would love to know. Or and also I feel like I'm gonna forget. So can I just ask very briefly, how did you guys hear about this event? If you're like to share.
I have Professor Augusto for a class, and she sent out this DULASA announcement on a discussion board post. I also think it was tucked into like a CCI post or a CCI email that I got, and there was like a whole list of things, but because my professor like picked it out and posted it to the whole class, that made it stick out.
Yeah, I actually saw it the same way through the CCI email, the graduate email, the weekly update or the weekly digest about the internships, and there was just this was at the end as I was scrolling through it. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna put that on my Google Calendar.
Awesome.
Thank you. It just helps us know how we can how we can reach people too. But yeah, do you guys? The floor is open. Anything that you would like to see? Events.
And the advice I always try to give, it's kind of old and trite by now, but identify someone who has the job that you want to have, and then invite them to come speak. They're always flattered. Librarians love talking about themselves. They don't get enough chance to. And then you find out all about what they do, and you ask them a lot of good questions. And guess what? If they ever think about hiring anybody, they'll think of you. Oh, who is that nice graduate student who asked me all those good questions and really, flattered the heck out of me and thought my job was so cool. Yeah, let's get that person. Because I'll tell you a funny thing about a lot of these jobs is, they know you got the grad degree, you got the basics. But if you show interest, really, it's your curiosity that will drive your success in any of these roles, because we're talking, years, career, decades in a role where you gotta have it every day. And that's they say another thing, that your grad degree is, some people say, oh, it's just to get you the job, it's just to get you in the door. Well, really, the graduate degree is supposed to prepare you for the last day of your career, not the first day of your career. It's supposed to give you that long view and the foundational principles, because it's not just like learn a software package, get a job being that coder. You're building your professional orientation, your excitement, and your your work ethic and everything for the long haul. And when you go and talk up someone and get them to come talk to your grad student group, say, oh, it's a very intimate, informal, you could speak it extemporaneously. They remember that, as some cool thing. They remember you as having brought them into this neat environment. So that's just my pitch. Christine, if I didn't share that anecdote with you, I was remiss, but hope, find someone whose job you covet and invite them to come talk. That's all I'll say.
I can do a quick going off of that. One of the people that I am in the process of contacting to maybe come and be a speaker for us is the person I interviewed for one of the projects for Info 505. Her name is Nancy, and she works at, it's a law library here in Philadelphia. I think it's the oldest law library in America. And she was the interim director when I interviewed her, but that was at least a year ago. But I'm going to try to contact her and see if she can maybe talk to us for a little bit. And then I initially also tried to contact some former colleagues at Temple University to talk about their new fancy robot library that was being built when I was an undergrad student there. And they can't do, there's some really cool video footage online. I think I'm either going to try to find somebody who is just willing to maybe give a little spiel about it, and then maybe we could look at some videos of how that whole thing works, because I got to be there for the beginning process of that, but not the end. And to see it in action now is crazy. It literally has these giant arms that picks all your books for you, and it's a really interesting system. So if that interests anybody, hopefully we'll see that coming up. I'm just like shooting things off right now, but I'm pasting something that we talked about in a staff meeting earlier today. It's just a really cool LibGuide that fellow librarian Kathleen made, and it's about voting. So that was just something that interested me that I wanted to share with you guys. And I also want to say here, like, we also do plan on having some more informal events in the future. Like, we've talked about doing like a Zoom happy hour kind of thing. Again, I think the whole like study group session at like, you know, or just like co-studying through Zoom is also something that if you guys are interested, let us know, we'd be down. And then, yeah, I'm really glad to see that you guys were able to connect through posts on the discussion board. I think I'm going to try to advertise that, advertise us in my own class, so we can get some more people and hopefully then get some more speakers.
It's 8 o'clock. I gotta run to the next thing.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
All right, see you later, and hope everybody's got everybody else's emails and keep in touch.
Yeah.
Did you? But I'll leave you figure that out. I gotta go. Okay, see you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, there may be a Drexel, or there may be a DULASA email in general, but I'll also just put my email address in the chat, I guess.
We'll do the
If
same.
anybody, yeah, really any questions, anything if you think of a burning thing, you're like, oh, you know, I'd love to have somebody talk about this, like, you think about later, you just reach out to me or to one of us, yeah. And we are really glad that you guys joined us tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And I don't know if you guys are based in Philly or would be comfortable even doing this right now because of social distancing stuff, but you can find Christine and I at Hahnemann Library a couple days a week from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I know that's like really, really specific, but we have not had visitors so far. So.
Oh, Ashley, you did have that great question that we didn't ask about libraries reopening.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember how you phrased it.
No, it's all good. So that's why I wanted to pop that the voting LibGuide in there. We were talking earlier today, and I said, you know, we could also talk tonight about, has anybody just seen anything like really cool that a library has done during pandemic that was kind of like, maybe not necessarily in a response to COVID, but it could be, that they feel like sharing. And this literally, it doesn't have to be tonight. It can also be later on. The LibGuide that I shared with you guys wasn't that. It was just a really awesome LibGuide. And I feel like I'm sure I speak for more than just myself when I've seen a lot of interesting things crop up about like voting and the upcoming election in the last couple of months, especially like library resources. So I just thought this was really cool and worth sharing. But another thing that I would mention is if you guys are on Instagram, there's a cool account called, oh boy, I'm forgetting the name already. I'll find it, give me a sec. But they had a lot of really good stuff like that that they've shared on the account. Let me see. Oh, it's called The Library Life. Let me go here. This is just a fun account to follow in general, but they've, you know, they've talked a bunch about like, this is not really good quality, but there's like a lot of things that were on here that was different like public libraries' responses to COVID over the last couple of months. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to stop the recording. I'm so sorry. I feel like, okay, I'm going to stop it now. Because I feel like I like totally forgot I was doing that.